Hi there, I'm Marcus with the IndieMusicLab.com. So if you're anything like me, then you're a huge fan of that anthemic indie pop sound as heard from M83. So in today's video, what I thought we would take a look at are just some of the production tricks that are inside of M83's productions. Now this is a top 5 list, and these are just a few of the production tricks that I personally really enjoy, that I am a huge fan of, and hopefully these will inspire you to not just know about them, but actually go and implement them and try them out in your own productions, because that's the whole point of making these types of videos. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Here are the top 5 M83 production tricks, according to me. Sliding in at number 5 is probably the most popular and well-known little production move by M83, and that is the vocal lead line in Midnight City. That vocal lead line is such an iconic sound, right? And it sticks in your ears. You can never get it out of your head. If you hear it in the morning, you're gonna keep hearing it. It's gonna be stuck in your head for like 3 days. That is the nature of these types of production moves. So how do we replicate this? Or at least how do we replicate a version of this? Because it doesn't obviously have to be exactly what we're hearing. But what I thought I would do is just throw together a bit of an example of what this could look like. So this is just a drum loop, a synth track, and then I tried to emulate and get a vocal track that is pretty close to what you hear with Midnight City. So let's give this a listen. That's pretty cool, right? It's a super fun sound. And the first thing that I'll mention as far as achieving this is I definitely prefer and I recommend that you go about this with relying on using actual vocal takes and actual vocal lines rather than, say, grabbing a vocal snippet or a vocal chop and then putting it on a keyboard and playing it like a synth. For certain songs, that can absolutely work, but this type of sound, there's a lot of that human emotion and energy popping through. It doesn't feel like it's being played on a keyboard. You want to just record in these vocal takes and then add the processing to that audio. So let me give you an example of what this looks like. So I'm going to turn off all of the plugins, and we have a couple different takes here, and some of these are copied and pasted. But the first take here, let's just have a listen to this. That's all it's doing, right? Now, you might notice that's an octave lower than what is in the final result. So we did do some effects on this. And then, so once I got just one little take like that I liked, I just duplicated that. And then again. And then again. Now here, it's very easy. I just grabbed this little part. I just grabbed this here, and I duplicated that, and then I just went duplicate like 4 times, and then boom. And then as you can hear here, I added in that extra little melody. So this is a different recording with this little snippet. Right? And then it goes back to the original. So then, how did I process this? So let me just walk you through this chain very quickly. It's the one here in red. Let me hide this for now. And so we started with a pitch shifting plugin of some kind. So this is Little Altar Boy. Let me keep this soloed. So that's where we're getting most of it. So I'm just pitching it up by an octave. Now you don't necessarily need Altar Boy, but this, you want a plugin or something inside of your DAW that can do something like this. Pitch up an octave, and I lowered the formant ever so slightly so it gives it a bit more of a monster sound, right? And that's all it's doing, a little bit of drive, and we're good to go. Then after that, I did a bit of auto-tune on this. Now I automated this auto-tune. This is super important because I wanted those notes to feel like they were played on a keyboard or on a fretboard on a guitar, right? Where the notes are very precise. So I wanted auto-tune. The problem was this note, there's a slide there. So a really tight auto-tune is going to sound wonky if we try to put that on there. So what I did is I automated the auto-tune to only come in or to be bypassed whenever there are those slide notes. So as you can see here, I just wrote in this automation. So the auto-tune's active here, and then it's turned off here. It's turned on again. Whenever I had that slide note, I just take the auto-tune off using this automation lane right here. And then the next thing is I just put some, very quick processing using JJP vocals just for some, compression, EQ, saturation. And then I wanted to add some more distortion, so I grabbed saturation knob and I cranked it. So you're starting to really hear this sound come together. Then some reverb. Whoop. And then some OTT to give it some extra little bite and compression at the end of the chain, and then finally a little bit of chorus to make it a bit fluttery across the stereo spectrum, so it feels, so it just has a slight bit of that type of phasey-like texture to it. It's very subtle though. And then finally I'm setting it to a quarter note delay that I have on a return track here, so that is how you hear that. Right? And that's all that we're doing. And again, this started with me just doing, oh, right? That's all I did. And then I processed it and I copied and pasted some parts and I added in this little section right here. And then we're all good. All right, so the rest of these aren't as detailed. I'm just gonna kind of run through these as quickly as I can without being too slow. So coming in at number 4 is the acoustic guitar arrangement in the song Wait. Left guitar, right guitar. Notice how they're playing different things. You have the one on the left, and then the one on the right. Just two different recordings spread out. And it's so loose too. That is just fantastic. It's a super simple concept, obviously. But this actually can be tricky when you have the same type of instrument and you're trying to double it. The easiest, most natural thing is to just play the same thing twice, right? And pan one left and pan one right, and you get a nice stereo spread. But sometimes you want to be a bit more intricate, a bit more interesting, so that it's not just the same thing happening on both sides of the stereo spectrum. But this is where it gets tough because you don't want the one to distract from the other. So an example of this too is counter melodies. So if you have like the main, say, vocal melody, but then you have like a synth or a keys or a guitar part that plays counter to it, and they kind of play together, but they're not the same melody, you really have to do it well in order for it not to be distracting and for it to work really well in the context of an entire mix. Now this is a bit more subtle of a version of that, but it is still the same thing where you can very easily write or record a distracting arrangement if you make the left guitar different than the right guitar. But at the end of the day, if you do it well, like they do, like M83 does here in the song Wait, it just sounds so beautiful because it adds that looseness to it too. Whereas, the one guitar is just doing occasional strums and the other one's doing a more consistent thing, but they work together. They play off each other, and that is the key. So that's number 4. I also love the space in the song. It's so open. So it's just gonna keep going. So that's number 4. Sliding in at number 3 is the stereo drums with mono vocals in the song Oblivion. Do you hear that? Do you hear what I'm talking about? Notice how wide the drums are. You've got like claps happening on the left and like snares, and you've got those tom fills that are happening, moving from the left side of the stereo spectrum to the right side. But that vocal is so mono. And not only the lead vocal, but I can also hear, I think, a couple vocal doubles that aren't panned like 100 left, 100 right. Like if you're doing vocal doubles and you have the vocal down the middle, and then you're like, well, the vocals need to go left and right just because that's what I saw somebody on YouTube do, that doesn't mean that's going to sound the best. Often, the opposite is true. If you give the vocal its own lane in a very mono space down the middle, but then you have other elements like the drums out wide, it creates a beautiful contrast, and it helps add that focus to the lead vocal. Really pay attention to this, and if you have headphones, listen to this song in headphones, and you'll really notice what I'm talking about. The vocal is down the middle. With the doubles, it's stacked on top of each other. And then you've got the drums out wide. Just one more example of why I think stereo width is overrated, in the sense that we don't think about the term stereo width correctly. The whole point of stereo width is to add differentiation and contrast between different elements inside of a mix. And if you add a chorus or a doubler or a stereo width plugin of some kind to all of the individual tracks in your mix so that everything is wide, well then it's just everything is wide across the stereo field. So nothing has a lane. It's just, everything's kind of spread out, and it doesn't create that differentiation between the different tracks. So this is huge. I love how M83 implements that narrow vocal down the middle with those stereo elements, especially with how wide the drums are. All right, sliding in at number 2 is the filtered vocal vibe track. Now this is from the song Kim and Jessie, and I'm going to play that here in a second, but this is going to be another one of the show and tell. So I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like, or how you could apply this trick inside of a production session. So here is the song. Right here when the chorus comes in, listen. It's in the back, bunch of reverb on it, it's filtered out. Now, the reason that I called this the filtered vibe track is because that track is what really gives that chorus the vibe. It's the type of thing that makes it so sticky. You remember this song because of that sound. And it's actually very easy to come up with a production sound like this, or to add a track that adds that effect to your productions. So let's come back to that Midnight City style track that I threw together here that I showed you in the first trick. And now I'm going to mute the Midnight City vocal, and we're going to move to a version of, like, if I took this track and I wanted to implement that idea or that technique, here is what it might sound like. Super simple melody, right? All I'm doing is ooh, ooh, wow, ooh, wow. And then just like we did with the Midnight City vocal track, we added some effects to it. So let's quickly run through what I did here. So this is just the vocal. Wow. So as you can hear again, it's an octave lower, makes it nice and easy for me to get those melodies in. And then I threw Little Altar Boy on it. I boosted, or I turned the formant up a bit so it has a bit more of a chipmunky type of sound, just very slightly, and then I pitched it up an octave as well, added some drive. And then again, just a quick and easy plug-in, JJP vocals, add some bite, some compression. And then Saturation Knob by Softtube. But as you can hear, there are two things at this point that are still very much missing in order to, if you want to create that very vibey, reverbic type of sound. And that is reverb, number one, but also filter. So here comes the reverb. And there we start to get, like, okay, there we start to get some reverb, right? And then EQ, so we're filtering out the highs, filtering out the lows. There we go, right? And then I just got some OTT, add some extra compression, and a bit of chorus to kind of give it that fluttery type of vibe. Now the rest of these are definitely optional, right? Once you get past Alter Boy, some compression using JJP, and some saturation and reverb, and filtering with EQ, everything else is like optional. This just becomes then the point where you can play around, you can add a plugin here, plugin there, test things out, do whatever you want. But don't get overwhelmed by how long this chain is. This was just grabbing this and this and this, and it starts to just stack on top of each other. And then I did add RC20 just because I wanted to see what it would sound like if I grabbed a random preset and threw it on here. Just gave it some extra vibe, some extra color. And then I have a slap delay to give it almost like an extra reverb type of sound. It sounds like it's in a small room. And then finally, I wanted to make the sound mono. And that kind of goes back to, I think, was it 4 or 3? I forget. Where the stereo drums and the mono vocal, right? Where you give it its own lane and you give it its own space. So these types of tracks, I love making them mono. Now, one more thing you could do, let's say you wanted to add like a side chain type of effect to it. So let me add kickstart here. So many things you can do with it, right? But at its core, that is how you can get that type of sound that just creates that sticky, ear candy type of vibe that drives a song home. And these are the types of tracks that can make a generic vanilla kind of song and just bring it to life just by adding one track like this. It's beautiful. So that is number 2. All right, now before we get to number 1, very quickly, I want to let you know about my 7 steps to a killer indie song guide. If you want to make songs like M83 or Tame Impala or whoever your favorite indie artists are, and you want a framework and a structure to help you get that done, then go check out this free guide. It's really going to help you out. I'll talk more about this at the end of the video, but just know that the link is in the description below and it's 100% free. All right, let's move on to number 1. All right, and finally, sliding in at number 1 this is my favorite M83 production move. It just gets me every time. It hits home and it's so beautiful. And this is the tension-inducing pause in the song I Need You. Have a listen. So I'll start it here. And then it just hovers. It's like, when are we gonna start? Waiting, 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 waiting. So nice. It just, and you can feel that tension just building and building. Oh. How powerful is that? And all you need to do to make something like this happen is to add a couple bars, to your DAW, right? Instead of the song hopping right into the chorus or hopping right into the next section, especially for this type of ambient, reverbic, kind of anthemic type of vibe. Try this out, seriously. I mean, it's just the way it builds and just kind of hovers and the tension keeps building when there's nothing, and then finally, fantastic. Amazing. Okay, I just want to keep listening to this song. This, by the way, is my favorite M83 song from their entire, or from his entire discography. I think it's just one guy, right? I should probably know that. I think it's just one guy who's the main guy of M83, but in any case, there you go. Those are the top 5 production tricks from M83, according to me. I hope you enjoy this video. Now, if you want to dive deeper, like I just talked about, be sure to check out my 7 Steps to a Killer Indie Song Guide. If you're ready to finally write some songs, and write your own songs and figure out what your sound is, the only way you're going to figure that out is if you start making songs. And this gives you a framework of, okay, how do I get an idea? And then how do I write the song? How do I record it, produce it, mix it? How do I take it from start to finish? That is what this guide helps you accomplish. It's 100% free, so be sure to check it out. Link is in the description. So, that is all I have to say. I think the video is over, so without further ado, I'm going to leave. And you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time. Bye.